Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Marlene. Today's video, this is going to be the one where I do talk about my spiritual story, okay? I've been wanting to make a video like this ever since I started making videos about spirituality, and the reason why I didn't want to do it was because I felt like I was just like testing the waters, but I feel that I do need to make a video talking about myself and my spiritual journey, just so you guys can get maybe like a feeling, like familiarize yourselves maybe with like my backstory and why I do the things I do, and um, mostly like to help anybody that maybe went through the same and that I was able to also like get over it or like heal from it. So yeah, this is my video. I again have my notes because I have a couple of points I want to touch on, and I'm outside. They're cutting the grass, I believe, so hopefully you guys are able to hear me well while I'm filming this video. And so yeah, let's get started. So obviously, first I want to start saying that I think it's very important that when we're seeing somebody on a screen on YouTube, that we have some sort of discernment of who is giving you that information. You don't want to just follow anybody, you want to see through their energy, if they're being honest, if they are being sincere and transparent with you, and that the message that they're bringing to you is not that one of you could say deceive or just desperation, but it's actually a person, hopefully the camera doesn't fall, a message of like information. Because at the end of the day, you gotta think about information. It's light, right? Remember the light information, so from the material raw. So when we are hearing somebody's information or they're giving you information, that's light. That's actually feeding your atoms, your system, your body. So that does have an impact on who you are as a person. So think about it as if you want to initiate, into something. Are they going to initiate to for you to heal something, to help you as a person, or are they just taking you to a path that they haven't even walked themselves, and they are like throwing you into the abyss? Like, you don't want to do that. You don't want to follow people that are just going to like deceive you, and I really want to start talking about the false light stuff in my channel, like the Luciferian energy in my channel. But like, it's just taking me some time, like whenever I make a video, I don't just make one video, I make two videos, because I have a Spanish channel as well, and I'm just trying my best, with what I can. So first of all, well, my name is Marlene. I think I say that in all of my videos. So my spiritual story is that I'm just gonna start since a kid, right? So I was born in the U.S., but I was raised in Mexico. So when I was born, literally 2 months later, they took me to Mexico. I was just there in Mexico, right? I had a pretty normal childhood. So I come from a middle class family. My dad would work and my mom will be a stay-at-home mom. And yeah, like we grew up, well, I grew up moving in different cities in the south part of Mexico, but I mainly grew up in one city. I'm not gonna say the name, but it has a lot of links correlated to the Vatican. So it's a very religious city. It is very traditional. Everything revolves around the Catholic Church religion, right? So when I was growing there, you could only imagine I was very into like going to church, praying, things like that. And My friends and family would always see me as someone that wasn't scared of the dark, that loved praying, that liked going to church, that um, was a very good child, good at school and everything. I have my friends. I have my best friend. Her name was Marlene. I met her when we were in kindergarten, not seventh grade, because I said that in another video, but in kindergarten. So I was like 7 years old. And me and her, we were always together, like same age, same name, same everything, same legs. So it was like, just a just very uh, she was like a soulmate, like like my soul knows that she had to be my best friend because if not, like I would have just been the awkward kid at school and never had friends or nothing. So she was a big part in my life, right? So pretty much, you could say my dad was more like atheist or like agnostic. Like he actually didn't go to church, but my mom did. She will follow everything, that the church will say to do. So when I was growing up, um, I didn't question much, right? Like I just really like going to church and things like that. But when I moved to the US for a couple of years, I started reading a lot about death and mysteries and things like that because I don't know, it was like very interesting to me learning like about death, and I guess I wanted to know about the afterlife and like scary stories. And so when we go back to Mexico now, as I was a teenager, that's when I could say I started falling into uh, becoming like an atheist, because even though my parents switched me to from a public school to a Catholic school, and that Catholic school had actually a lot of, oh my gosh, I don't even want to say it here, but like links to like the Vatican. So all that energy, like just made me be more like rebellious, like rebel against like my school, because to me it was just that whole energy that was like very hype like hypocritical, I think it is the word, when the teachers will say something but they will do something different, so it wasn't right for me, from like my brain or my heart, that I was having these teachers talk about ethics or like be a healthy person when they were not showing as that person, so I was like, why would I follow the advice of somebody that doesn't say what, like, or they would steal money from the school, so I was just like, school, I like going to school because I like learning and everything, making friends, but I didn't like the teachers, I always had like this rebellion against teachers. And so my way of rebelling was like dressing up different, I started wearing heavy makeup, and at school they wouldn't allow it, so I had to like tame it down. And I did like pink highlights on my hair. I was going through just like my emo phase, right? And I started getting into astrology also, like reading like magazines, like the horoscope section. Like I would save up all my money just to get a magazine for the horoscope. I was really into like learning guitar, drawing, the arts. Like I would love painting and all of that. But unfortunately, because I felt that the town or city I was in had like this, small town mentality, that they were always just perceiving me somebody different, so um I started having a lot of I started to have a lot of issues, with just having a normal life. Like my dad owned like a motorcycle shop, so I knew how to drive motorcycles. So I was always getting stopped by a lot of people, like either to supposedly I will break a rule, so my dad had to pay to, like bail me out. Not out like the motorcycle, but he would also, hold on. I feel like they're watching me, but it's okay. Um, Give me 1 second. So yeah, and then the other thing was like I was um really into the science. So for some reason, I was like really good in chemistry and physics. I'm not saying I can right now, but back then it was like second language to me. Like I could just the formulas, like they were very easy to understand where they would come from, things like that. Um, and yeah, so pretty much you could say my left brain, my right brain were very like separated. Like I was either too artistic or too into the science. There was like no in between, right? And so when it came to having like any gifts, anything like that, I don't consider myself as having anything when I was like as a teenager. Like all I thought about was just doing good at school, right? So again, because my parents, they actually did become a bit strict about me. They wouldn't like have me like let me have like a boyfriend or like any sort of like romantic relationship. So I got really obsessed and wanted to have like a boyfriend just to again like prove them wrong again. So all this rebellious energy obviously was coming from just also like the very uh, religious pendulum that was in my city. I was just I didn't resonate with nothing that they were doing, so I was like there has to be something else. So the way for me to go and explore that something else was to actually move to the US again. So at 16 years old, me and my family decided to move back to the US. Okay, I think he's done, hopefully. So, yeah, pretty much when I moved to the US, again, I had no like notion or feeling or sense for like the spiritual uh, stuff. Like, I wasn't going to church, I wasn't practicing anything. I just was focused on my academics, because I didn't know English. So, I was like really struggling to put all my effort in learning English, and somehow I was able to graduate in the top, I think it was like the top 15 of my high school class. Imagine like coming from zero to being the top with no English, and then being able to learn English, get grants, and go to college, right? So because of my like for art, I wanted to pursue a career in graphic design, but then I was like really questioning my existence, like do I even like art that much? Can I live off of this? And then I was like, but I kind of want to learn business. I like about, like money and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, let me study something with business. And then I found out about tourism management. I was like, wait, actually, I remember when I was younger, I actually like like not traveling, but like learning about cultures, like something about like ancient Greece, Rome, Egypt, like just traveling the world, learning languages, learning cultures. And because of my upbringing in Mexico, like the south part of Mexico is very rich in culture, language, all of that, I was like, yes, like I want to learn more. And I watch a lot of history channels and a lot of like planning, and I wanted to be like I wanted to have like my own traveling agency. Obviously the internet took over that, so anyways, that's a whole video. But I did pursue that career. I did had a degree on that. But anyways, like let's get into the religious, the spiritual part. I mean, so when I was going through all that, I guess you could say normal experience, with school. I also met my husband at the time, and just to make it like quick, he um, well, later on, like my best friend Marlene, like my childhood friend, ended up passing away from an accident in a motorcycle. So her death was very like meaningful to me, because it was like that identity, that I had all my life, was just gone, you know, like she was the only one that knew, you could say, like all my secrets, right? Like as a kid, like she had all my memories. And the fact that she was gone, it was like I didn't know how to pursue, or not pursue, like I guess you could say be myself without her, right? Because she was um just my childhood friend, you know, like she was like my identity, you know. So then I struggled with that, but also again, like I met my husband, so we were already like we got married, and we were trying to find a way to like for him to be here in the US, you know, and just like live together. I ended up becoming pregnant, and then I had my daughter. Um, Now she's 11 years old, and well, anyways, her whole pregnancy was a very hard time for me to remember because I went through a lot during my pregnancy. And so later on, my husband ended up also passing away. He was killed. So, well, yeah. Um, Pretty much when he passed away, that's when all this like spiritual stuff kind of started like talking to me, you know, like because I remember like the night that he passed away, I had this dream of him. And then the next day when I went to work, like we were not talking during that time. So when I ended up finding out, I was like, oh, I remember, like I kind of remember seeing him, like in the like the train station that I was waiting for, right? And oh my God, there's a butterfly. so so yeah, I was like just in shock, like how my dreams and everything I saw was like coming to life, you know, like my dreams. And here's the thing with me is like when I was a teenager, I will have this very vivid, well, not a teenager, as a kid too, like I always had very vivid dreams. So sometimes I would forget about like reality, and sometimes I would be in such a dream state that I will turn off like the alarm clock, and people will like see me doing it. Oh, one more story, like my best friend Marlene and I would talk to each other during our sleep state, and we knew that because her older sister will like hear us talking in the middle of the night. So just imagine how scary she would have felt. But it's like all subconscious, you know, because talking about astrology, like I have some Gemini energy. Her moon was in Gemini, so we talk a lot when we are unconscious. So it's kind of funny because like, are you really like unconscious? Like you're talking, you know. So, anyways, so so yeah, like my dreams were very vivid. So that's when I started questioning myself about like what's really going on in the world, or like what happens after we die, things like that. And oh my God, there's this bug. And so that's when I actually met a guy who was a, I want to say his name, but he was very like, you could say, special to me at that time because he obviously helped me go through like the grieving process. But because of that, you could say I kind of went obsessed with him because the moment he was like trying to leave me, you know, I was just trying to, typical, you know, hold on to him. And I will do all these things, just try to be with him, you know, and I will change myself. And then that's when I actually found out about plant healing, like botanical healing, not like the other type of herbs, but like normal herbs, you know, legal herbs. And so I went on this journey of healing myself and like just exercising a lot, reading a lot, just trying to improve myself a lot mentally and physically. But I was missing that part, you know, like the spiritual part. So I was just doing it over and over again, and like it became the typical narcissist. You could say like borderline, but I don't consider myself a borderline. And it was just that dynamic, you know, where I was always like fighting for him, crying for him, and he was just like, you know, mental abuse, like giving me the silent treatment, things like that, like typical narcissist. cheating on me and a lot of really bad stuff, like he didn't think about hurting me or like my family, nothing, my finances, nothing, but I was so blinded by the false light, so um, that's when years later my dad ends up passing away. And so I'm like questioning my reality, literally. Like I was already reading into manifesting, like how to manifest your specific person, and so I was like, why all this happens to me, like why do I have to struggle so much, like when everybody was in college just focusing on school and that. I was already a widow, I was already this, like, why, when everybody's going through that, I'm already like, like nobody has to worry about this and that. Or like even in Mexico, like I can't even, well, now people probably know more because of social media, but back then, like, you couldn't even like say, like plant medicine because you would get killed, and it got so bad to the point where nowadays in present time, so I don't know when you see this video, but present time 2025, that city doesn't even have like a major or people running the city because everybody gets shot, just because you think differently, act differently, or want to do better. But anyways, you guys are probably already heard about the issue with Mexico and the cartels and all of that. And so yeah, I was going through a lot of just personal life struggles and like um real life struggles, that I was like devastated. I was I don't know, I just felt like I was losing myself no matter how much I try, to like heal myself. And I guess I kind of became desperate. So I ended up trying THC, the synthetic version, unfortunately. So I think that's the one that gave me like the bad trip. And that's when I started to see like the spaceship, that would like telepathically send me out information. And I was really scared, obviously, because it was like my first experience doing it, as an adult, because I already have all these things that my ego thought was my identity, right? So for me, I was very logical at the time. So for me, going through thinking that angels were talking to me, things like that, was like very scary, very frightening. The fact that they were calling me like Maria, Elena, or like the angels, Jesus, and just all of that, I was like kind of scary, but at the same time, I was like, yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I had this ring. I don't have it right now, obviously, but I had this ring that looked like a snake, and I remember I always knew that ring was gonna be something important. And then when I look at the symbolism years later, I'm like, oh, that's the Kundalini experience that I knew I was gonna have, right? So, right after that, again, I was just trying to live a normal life, and I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. So that takes me to my, I guess, the road to enlightenment, or um, yeah, like my spiritual story, right? So yeah, when I had my like Kundalini energy, um because it was almost like psychosis, you could say. I had, well, I fell into a lot of the false light realms. So I was very into the false, or like the twin flame stuff, or manifesting realms, like specific person, for years. I was like trying to do that, and I couldn't stop watching those videos, even though I kind of sensed that those people were like desperate, like their words did resonate with me. So that's why I would like stay or stick with them. But it got me to a point where I was just going more and more, in a loophole. Like, I can't figure this out. Like, I don't get it. And if it wasn't because I actually look for information, like did my own research, starting having discernment and like questioning what was being presented to me, that I came to the realization, like, I'm just being lied to. Like, let me actually go meet my supposedly twin flame, which was the narcissist, and like actually see him now with my open eyes, and I did that. I was like, I just lied to myself, I've been living a lie. So because I lived the lie, now I want to live the truth. What is the truth? And so that's when my spiritual journey began, and I started getting into crystals, astrology, and I would read so much about like astrology because everything is correlated. I started seeing all the correlations between the ancient gods, the Greek gods, like when they talk about Venus, Aphrodite is the same archetype, and the love planet and this, and when the planets go retrograde, and the stories and mythology and mysticism. And then I got into, well, I already knew a little bit about like the law of attraction, all of that. So that I was like I was more into symbolism, and then I got into conspiracy theories, and I was just like, whoa, like I think I know what I'm getting to, and again, my dreams were very well, they are always very vivid, and I always remember them, so I write them down just so I can like recall them. And my dreams at that time had to do with me going into a church, leaving the church, going inside the church, being pointed at, running away from church, going back again to church, so it was this symbolism of me trying to figure out my belief system, what religion was, things like that. So yeah. What else? So yeah, that's when I started seeing a lot of like information out there that I noticed it was falling into those realms of the false light, Luciferian realms, where they are like kids trying to explain you something, but in reality they don't even know where they're going. It's like they're not even talking about experience. And that's one thing I was so scared of when I was doing some of my videos. I was like, what if I'm leading people in the wrong direction? What if, just because, here's the thing, and I feel like some people are getting the hang of it now, like just because somebody looks, like spiritual and this and that, or their energy or their face, they can look good, does not make them, like they walk the path. Like a lot of people just read a book or saw some TikToks and got that information, reconfigure it to repeat it again, and just now give it back to you as if they know it all, and obviously that's spiritual ego, we know that. But at the same time, I was like, imagine having that conscious, like that you haven't even, if you're talking about like having abundance and you don't even have like an income, or your life is abundant, like how can you do that? Like if you're gonna talk about spirituality and you never had any spiritual experience, like how come, you are here reading like tarot cards or this or that, or you're talking about like encountering your twin flame, but you never even like, overcome any of what supposedly that journey is supposed to teach you, about loving yourself. And it was just things like that, hold on.